Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast here with Jessica Bunbun. This is our reaction and review for The Boys Season 4, episodes 1, 2, and 3. Do you have your ice skates ready? Are
Oh, no,
you
no, no,
ready
no, no,
to
no, no, no,
attend
no.
Vought on Ice?
No, I absolutely am not ready to attend that. I do love that they got up a website where almost all the performances are out in Florida and everything
Stalking.
is sold out.
The Boys is one of these very rare television shows where the publicity around it is almost
Oh,
as entertaining. One thing I'm really going to miss, I think, coming out of these episodes is I never knew if this was an official account that Prime Video put together, but there was somebody who was Todd on every single bot post. They would go on there and be like, Homelander was robbed, hashtag home free. And it's like, are we gonna? Is Todd gone now? Is virtual Todd live forever? Or are we gonna pour one out for Todd in this video? Probably not.
okay, let's just get the really good news out of the way here. We are going to have another season.
Yeah,
So, season 4, not the last. And we'll get the bad news out of the
yeah.
way. Season 5, which has been renewed, will be the final season. So, we have to pour one out for the boys.
I'm disappointed by this, and I know that there are people out there that are saying, "Oh, this is great. It's not gonna overstay its welcome." I didn't feel like we were that close to it yet. And this is going to inform, by the way, some of the things I have to say about these first 3 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the show should have ended in season 6. I'm not saying we do the full supernatural 15 season run here, but it does feel like there was enough story for season 6. But season 5 was Eric Kripke's plan from the beginning. He said that a number of times. So here we are, and a byproduct of that is some stories they're just gonna be rushing right along through in season 4, apparently.
Yeah, and that's some of my criticism of this season so far. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I really do like about this season so far, but my issues that I'm having is that it feels like there's too many things that are crammed in here, and it does need another 2 seasons at least. I think it could have even been 3. It feels like every character is having like a midlife crisis right now of like, what is my legacy? What am I going to leave behind? What does this all mean for me? And I mean, like, almost every character is having their
Yeah.
crisis at the exact same time.
Give everybody time to process what's going on in their
Yes.
life. Sometimes it's good to just sit down, have a bloomin' onion, like kind of stuff
Oh,
it
no.
awkwardly in somebody's face. Listen, I live like 3 minutes away from an Outback Steakhouse. The bloomin' onion has always been tempting me. It has never tempted me more than when I saw it on the show. And then the moment she started feeding it to the deep, I suddenly felt like I don't know if I want a bloomin' onion anymore. Like this may not be as important to me. Okay, we have so much to get into here, but be sure to smash that like button and also subscribe because we are your nonstop shop for all things The Boys this season. We got previews, we have theories. There is so much to talk about.
And if you want even more coverage on the boys, we also have a Patreon where we have live streams and more videos, all kinds of stuff going on over there. And we'll leave a link for you in the description below. Okay,
Yeah.
let's start with something that I touched on a little bit earlier, which is that this season is a season of self-reflection.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking at their legacy, and there are way too many characters that are deep in their feels about their legacy. There's a few that make sense. Okay, let's start with Butcher. Okay, Butcher is facing the end of his life. So is he having, thoughts and regrets? Of course. That's how many people are when you're facing the end of your life and you're like,
Yeah.
what am I leaving behind? Am I keeping my promise to Becca that I'm going to keep Ryan safe? How am I going to do this? And it's really hitting him hard. And this storyline I really like, and it makes complete sense. He doesn't have that long to live. They had said, quote,
Hmm.
months. It's kind of being vague or whatever, and that's fine. But he knows that he doesn't have a lifetime. He's not going to grow to be an old man as he thinks,
Hmm.
that he may have been if he hadn't done what he done with the temp fee. So
Yeah.
this storyline, I do really like it. He's really trying to figure out what his legacy is, what he's done in his life, his regrets, and he has many regrets, but he feels like if he can just do this one thing, get Ryan safe away from Homelander, that he will be able to grow up and not be Homelander 2.0, then he has fulfilled his promise and he can die a happy man.
It's all of this is really complicated with Butcher, and I do agree. This is one of the best self-reflection storylines that the
Yes.
boys has done. And I have been somebody who has come out and even contradicted Kripke before and being like, this show is really about Huey and Starlight to me. It's less
Mhm.
about Butcher and Homelander, but I understand the push and pull there. But Butcher being sort of on his last stage of life here and figuring out what he wants to do with it, that is important. Now, I will say this to you, Mr. Billy Butcher. You know, like we're friends here. I just
Oh,
feel
no.
like no, I don't want to be friends with Butcher. It seems like a bad time.
Yeah, nobody's happy being friends with Butcher, it seems.
Clearly, no, the thing Butcher really needs to focus on here is Ryan, because Ryan is, you know, he's basically a son to him. He's somebody who he wants to establish this deep bond and have some sort of legacy. The real legacy here is what you leave behind and the
Mhm.
bond that you form and having that establishment of love, because that's the thing that could transform Ryan moving forward and have Ryan be somebody who's going to fight on the side of evil. Like, I really feel as though the end of this show, it's going to come down a lot to Ryan versus Homelander and this push and pull of what it means to be a child, what it means to be a parent, like that bond. And Butcher focuses just on the wrong things. My favorite part of this entire 3 episode arc for Butcher is him just hanging out with Ryan, spending some time trying to make the cookies. The cookies are no good. He ends up throwing the cookies away. Butcher, I got you. If you need advice on cookies, I'm really good at making them. But it
Are you
just
going to spike your cookies as well? No, you are good at making cookies. Please don't spike your cookies.
I have never spiked cookies. I will say, I think that really this is just about Butcher needing to find a way to feel like he's done something for himself and feel like he's done something that he can actually sit back and think, I've made the change that I wanted to make. And it's just, it's too complicated with him at times, but it's a good storyline.
And it's really interesting too because Ryan is, the tent pole for both Homelander and Butcher, both looking at him as a son. And of course, Homelander is actually his dad, looking at him as his son. And they're both looking at Ryan as the legacy that they're going to leave behind, where, Ryan is just kind of stuck in the middle, being like, I'm just a kid. I don't really know what's going
Yeah,
on. I don't really feel comfortable with any of this stuff that's going on. And, for Homelander, he's getting older. We're seeing that he's graying. People are talking behind the scenes that they're having to like CGI out his wrinkles. And he really, really wants to leave this behind, that when you think of Homelander now, you think of his son who's picking up the torch after him. I gotta say, it was really cool to see Antony Starr not actually in his costume, because oh my god, does he ever look like Bryan Cranston?
is he also the one who knocks?
Yeah, and he really is the one who knocks. But, Homelander, he really, really thinks that Ryan is his way of leaving behind this kingdom for him, this legacy for him. Sage is going to help him with that. Butcher on the same side over here, except he's pulling Ryan the other way to be like, oh, this is how I'm going to fix things that I've done. All the, bad things that I've cacked up in my life, I'm going to now be able to leave something better behind. Now, the thing about Butcher that I really wish wasn't happening, and shows do this all the time, and I never like it in any show that ever does this. When you have a group of people that are working together and you decide you're going to split them all up, like, Only Murders in the Building, they did this last season where you had the trio and they split them up all season. By the time they got back together by, the final episode, I just didn't feel very fulfilled. And I get what's happening. I get why, Mother's Milk and the boys are kind of like, oh, we just don't want to deal with Butcher anymore. And Huey's really the only one being like, I'm still Team Butcher till the end. They have a special bond. him not being part of the boys and bringing in Jeffrey Dean Morgan's character Joe to kind of be like, hey, your boys aren't working out, you can come over here, we can do some stuff together. It always feels disjointed to me, and it's supposed to, but I don't like it.
Yeah, I get it in a way, just because if I'm Mother's Milk, I think at a certain point, I do not want to deal with Butcher either. I mean, granted, he's done a lot of really bad, questionable things with this group over time. I think he
Hmm.
just hit a breaking point. Everybody hits a breaking point. Mother's
Yeah.
Milk just doesn't want to put up with his nonsense anymore. Butcher gives him even more reasons to not want to put up with his nonsense within these 3 episodes. But it really feels like this entire story is just this function of producers know you got Jeffrey Dean Morgan. He's playing a character who's going to enable some of the worst instincts that Butcher has. And in
Mhm.
order for Butcher to act on those, he needs to be away from the boy. So this is how they find a way to make it happen. It is a little bit cliche. I think this show in general has a few little problems, as crazy as it may be, just for relying too much on cliches. Because even in the function of doing this, they've also sort of pushed Mother's Milk to this point where he's I don't want to say he's unrecognizable to the guy we saw the first few seasons, because then it sounds like I'm making some commentary on him not having the beard anymore, and that's not what I'm doing. I just think he's let this power go to his head a little bit, and he doesn't feel exactly like the same pretty level-headed guy as we saw the first 3 seasons, where he was able to sort of look at things with a little bit of nuance, and now he's very much Mr. My Way or the Highway. And nobody likes the man Mother's Milk, and you're starting to become the man, and other people are going to try to start sticking it to the man.
Well, it's interesting too because, obviously the boys they're working with Supes, but they're also working to take down the bad Supes.
Yeah.
And one of the bad Supes has been A-Train, and he's been one of the most interesting characters on this show for me because you never really know where he's going to land. And I don't think A-Train's all bad or all good. And he's very rare to have somebody in this
Mhm.
show that's not all bad or not all good. And A-Train is it. And what's really cool about this character is I never know where he's going to land on something. You think he's going to do the right thing, he does the wrong thing. You think he's going to betray somebody, he doesn't. I just never know what's going to happen with him. And we watch a lot of TV here,
Yeah.
so to actually have a character that I legit just do not know what he's going to do or where he's going to land, I really appreciate having a character like that. So then we have Mother's Milk this season being like, I think I can flip A-Train. I'm like, oh no, you don't know what's going to happen with A-Train because nobody ever knows where he's going to land on it. And he's having his own crisis. We spoke about that a bit earlier. Everybody's having their midlife crisis or they're looking back at things where A-Train is after everything that happened with his brother and he's really thinking about things. He's just kind of like, okay, what's my legacy? I've been supposed to be stopping bad guys, but I've never really stopped anybody. Everything is just kind of a setup, set up by Vought. Am I really actually helping or stopping crime? Am I really a hero? No, I'm just kind of a fraud, and I don't really feel that great about it. That should something happen to me, like I'm just a fraud. I got this second chance where, I had the bad heart and everything was going sideways for me. Now I have this new heart and I'm still making the same choices. So we did see him decide to help Mother's Milk and help the boys to actually give them that footage of everything that was going on with the murder trial and Homelander and the Starlighters fighting against Team Homelander and all that was set up. He was able to get footage to be able to clear the names of 2 Starlighters that did not end up committing these murders, and he gave them to the boys. And I was like, okay, we've seen this before with A-Train where he's given something and then he's taken something and then he's betrayed everybody. So having him land here where Mother's Milk is like, I can flip him. I'm like, I don't know that you can.
I have good news and bad news for A Train. The good news is this is going to be your most heroic season that we've had a chance to see from you so far.
Maybe.
The bad news is you're going to die at the end of it, because this is going to be A Train's last season. I am calling it right now, just because
Oh.
they have put him in a position at this point where he's going to be very compromised from all sides. We already know what Homelander does to people who betray him. I mean, he looked at what happened with Black Noir last season, and just by not giving him information, that was enough of a betrayal to kill him. I just don't think A-Train is going to make it out. We already have this personal storyline with his brother.
Yeah.
We also have Will Ferrell showing
Oh
up
my
in
goodness.
the okay, good thing for them to shout out The Blind Side there, because the whole time I was sitting here watching this just like ridiculous movie spoof that they put on. It's okay, guys. I know you're doing everybody knows you're doing The Blind Side. It also kind of made sense on a meta level that it would be Will Ferrell, because it would be somebody who is a comedic actor who would be like, I want to show people my
Yeah, I
dramatic
know.
chops. I'm going to do this movie playing the stereotypical coach who comes in and saves somebody from. It was all so ridiculous.
Okay, let's talk about something you touched on.
Yeah.
A-Train's gonna die this season.
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna put on my hard hat because this is something that I've had a problem with the show for a long time with. And that is, the show is afraid to kill off big main characters. There are characters that should have just been killed off already, and they have found a way to either bring them back or not kill them. I mean, Black Noir, for me, I don't like what they've done with him this season. I thought that, oh, we're still going to have him, they killed him. Okay, but then they're bringing him back in another, an actor who speaks. I was just like, I thought maybe it would be okay, but it doesn't work for me at all. They should have just stuck the landing, killed Black Noir, and brought in a new soup like Tech Knight. I love Tech Knight from Gen V. He's so good. He's been mentioned throughout all the seasons. He was even, sort of mentioned a little bit when they showed the list. And they were like, oh, we're going to bring in some new soups. There's Tech Knight on there as an option. Bring in Tech Knight. Just bring in Tech Knight. Let's have Tech Knight.
Okay,
I'm a Tech Knight fangirl.
I know what Tech Knight's kryptonite is.
Yeah, we all know.
If I'm showing up to fight Tech Knight, I'm just bringing a block of Swiss cheese and calling it a day.
Oh my god! I was gonna say I'm just gonna bring a donut, but a block of Swiss cheese. Yep, it's the way to go.
Tech Knight, see you later. I think we'll probably see Tech Knight at some point this season, or at least I hope so. And then you can.
That's so dirty.
If you guys are still watching, leave hashtag Swiss cheese in the comments.
I just feel like they need to make deaths matter, and none of the main characters are bigger characters that should have died or could have died. A-Train could have already died with his heart problems. Black Noir should be dead. They shouldn't have brought him back. Maeve should have and could have been dead as well. And they just are so afraid to let anybody die. Even Soldier Boy is back in cryo. It's just, let people go, make it matter. The biggest deaths we've had is Becca and Translucent, who just don't really matter. And I think with this show, they really are afraid. I'm really hoping that because next season is the last season, they will just put on their big boy pants and kill somebody. That it's going to be okay. You can kill A-Train. You can kill Black Noir. You can actually kill somebody. And your audience is going to be okay with it. Have some skin in the game.
It is funny that a show that prides itself on being big, bold, and crazy is actually kind of conventional with its. We like all our characters so much that we don't want to write them out, even when it sort of suits us to write them out. See, to me, I'm okay with having a quote unquote new Black Noir, just because I feel that's something a company like Vought would do. That we don't want to act like this person is gone. I liked the Black Noir bit the first time that I saw it. The problem I have with the boys sometimes is they find a joke that they think is funny, and then I sympathize with this because I do it all the time too. I just beat that joke into the ground and do it over and over again, thinking that it's still going to be funny. They do this. They're doing this with the Deep and the Octopus too, and we'll get more into that later. Goodness. But it's just, they find something that works the first time. The actor thing worked for me at first, but the longer it went on, the less funny it became. See, to me though, when it comes to that, they need to kill people off. They should have just killed Soldier Boy. That's the one that I fully agree with you on, because I love Jensen as much as the next guy, but Jensen has a new show coming to Prime Video. He's working with Derek Haas, who worked on Chicago Fire. Jensen's going to be fine. He's not going to be starving for work here. It just feels like you do need to kill somebody off in order for death to matter, in order for deaths to stick. But you could still do that and do pretty much everything you're doing this season and just make us have like a little bit of fear in our bellies.
Okay, you brought up the Deep, my favorite, the Deep,
Oh
even
boy.
though they haven't known what to do with him for like 2 straight seasons. Whoever is writing the storyline for the Deep needs to go straight to jail. This is like unacceptable storylines. Like, what are you doing with him? This octopus thing, it was funny last season. The fact that it is going on for 3 more episodes, it's just like the joke is done and it's not funny anymore. There's nothing really happening with him. As much as I love the Deep, they either needed to figure out something to do with him or he was a character that was expendable. And I hate saying that because I love the Deep. But if you don't know what to do with a character, stop using him.
Maybe they're starting to find it now with the relationship between him and Sage, who she's my favorite of the new additions
Yes,
that
let's
we
get
have.
into
Because
Sage.
she is, she's been coined the smartest person alive. And you kind of get some good examples of this, how she's just surrounded by books. I think the design on her little lair
Yeah.
was well done. I think she's a really fascinating character. And she's also a character which, by the way, put your tinfoil hats on. I don't think Sage's endgame has actually been stated on the show yet. I think it's pretty easy to say, okay, she's joined Homelander. She's kind of going along with what Homelander wants to some extent. She's aiding Homelander. But if you are the smartest person in the world, do you really think it's that smart to be like going along with Homelander's every whim or be fully assisting him? It's smarter to me that you're going to enable him because you have a long game plan here that may or may not actually involve him, but involves you getting what you want.
Well, that's the thing. What is it that Sage actually wants? Like her wanting to just help Homelander create this kingdom to give to his son. Like, what is she actually getting out of it? She's not afraid of him.
Mhm.
She doesn't need him. She didn't want to be part of the Seven. So, what is she actually getting out of this? And I think for her, it's just being able to use Homelander to get to whatever her desired result is. And we just don't know what that is yet. But she's definitely taking her time, building her trust with Homelander to be like, listen, I'm going to help you rebuild this kingdom so that you have something to give to Ryan. First, we're going to, deal with this murder, trial. You're not guilty. Great. We're going to set up that some Starlighters are, they're going to take the heat for, attacking your fan base. We're going to make sure that it's all taken care of. It was so smart and so well planned that Homelander, even though he doesn't like people telling him what to do and he's really struggling with it, he has told her very plainly, I need somebody who's not going to just do what I say. And she's called him out on it when he's starting to get a little testy about it, to be like,
Mhm.
you said this is what you wanted, and I'm here to help you build this kingdom. So do you want it or not? And she is able to get him sort of back in line with all of that. She is so refreshing. Even like that last scene with the blooming onion,
Yeah.
hooking up with Deep, seeing her in that state where it looks like she has some sort of rod that she may have like put into her own brain to just turn it off, because being the smartest person in the world has got to have some complications with it,
Yeah.
where you just want to take a break and eat a blooming onion and watch reality TV and hook up with the Deep, but if you're the smartest person on the planet, are you really hooking up with the Deep? No, you're not, right? So she's so refreshing. It's so nice to see a brand new character is bringing something completely different to the show.
Yeah, and I think she's very effective in just kind of giving the show a little bit of new energy, new challenges. I feel like her end game is probably she wants Supes to be okay. I think there's this real push and pull going on right now, especially with what Newman is doing, and we'll get a little bit more into Newman in a minute, but everybody wants to find some sort of stable footing. And I think she recognizes that, soups are in danger to a certain extent. And I think Homelander is a good means to an end when finding a way to make sure that soups are okay, they're taken care of. But I think she's also using this other new soup who is being brought in this season in Firecracker in
Oh,
order to
no.
make this happen. Because here's what happens with people like Firecracker sometimes, who have this really just insane way of thinking, is that you put this person out there, they're going to say a lot of crazy over the top stuff. maybe you can use them to distract everybody. And in the process of this distraction, you can work on actually getting what it is that you want and carving out some sort of compromise. Because, Firecracker's not anywhere near powerful enough to be in the seven on the basis of her powers. Her powers seem to be pretty weak sauce. She's not somebody who I don't think the majority of just like logical people are gonna buy into what she's saying. She's just
Yeah.
so loud.
Yeah, that's the thing. When Sage decided to bring in Firecracker, I was like, okay. And then I saw her powers aren't really that anything. She's at a convention where
Mhm.
she's filling a room of like 40 or 50 people. So she doesn't have that much in the way of pull of a big audience like Stormfront did that
Mhm.
had, millions of people that are willing to do anything. I mean, Stormfront's gone and we still see people out there that are like rallying for her. And Firecracker doesn't have that kind of backing behind her. So I'm just like, why is Sage interested in bringing her in? What is she actually able to give to her? And I got my tinfoil
All right,
hat
all right.
on. I don't know if this is anything, but let's just talk about season 3 for just a second here. So
Okay.
we know that Soldier Boy and Liberty put together Herogasm and that they have known each other a pretty long time. And when he was talking about that and the idea that maybe they had hooked up and stuff like that, we saw that a little bit at the convention too. There was like a sign that was like, oh, did these two hook up or have a long time affair, whatever. He called her a firecracker. And I was like, oh, that's kind of an interesting way to talk about Liberty. That's interesting. Okay, cool. And then they announced that they had a character coming this season called Firecracker. I'm like, it's no longer a coincidence.
It's
I
fascinating.
I was just like, is this on purpose? Because the boys, everything they do is very purposeful and is
Mhm.
put in there for very specific reasons. So it's making me wonder because Soldier Boy also said, oh yeah, Homelander is my son. I always figured I had a whole bunch of, Rugrats out there. Basically, Vought has taken, what they can from me and is making other superheroes. So is it possible then that Firecracker is also one of Soldier Boy's children? Is it possible that they also did the same thing to Liberty / Stormfront? It's just very odd that he would call Liberty a firecracker, and all of a sudden we have Firecracker this season.
It's crazy. I did not ever think about that before you brought it to my attention. Where okay, this could be something. It would be a way to try to find a way to bring Jensen back into the show if you're wanting to bring Jensen back into the show for something at some point.
Well, they kept him alive, right? Like, what are you keeping him alive for?
Yeah, and it does give Firecracker a little bit of something more to do because one of my big issues with this season right now is just that a lot of the stuff that they've done that is sort of social commentary on the boys has often been sort of metaphorical or has been represented in other things like you're going through Vaughtland and the names of all the different restaurants
Your
and
favorite
dining.
thing.
It is so funny. It
It is
makes me
so
laugh
funny.
every single time I'm watching it, but you get the point of what they're doing there through the metaphor. And I think this season, everything is very on the nose when it comes to what they're trying to satirize, and it's a little bit too obvious. And I think the more that we get of that, the more it's just going to be okay, just like with the jokes, you are hitting the same thing again and again. And for Firecracker, I need a little bit of something more there, whether it is that she's related to Soldier Boy. Like we got a little bit of her backstory with Starlight in this episode,
Hmm.
and I will make this clear. I am a proud Starlighter. I am
Yeah, you
wearing
are.
I'm wearing yellow. I am team
Oh.
Starlight all the way. And you know, is it bad what she did with Firecracker? Yes, I am not condoning that by any stretch of the
She was
imagination.
also a teenager, and
Yeah,
teenagers are mean.
teenagers are mean, hurt people hurt people. She had a mother who was really influencing her to be competitive. She also still did apologize to Firecracker. She said she shouldn't have done it. She didn't. She could have taken more ownership of it, but I think she'll do that in time. But she did say the words, "I'm sorry." It is,
Sometimes that's not enough though,
no, I know.
like at this age and Firecracker's been holding on to this. It clearly shaped her life in a pretty significant way. And that's always the thing about it, right?
Yeah.
Words can do that and it can shape the way people think about themselves, how they go forward in their lives. Sometimes it doesn't, but sometimes it just hits that right button and your whole life changes.
I
and
think
I'm sorry isn't enough, whether you mean it or not.
I think it's ultimately just a situation where, Starlight did a bad thing when she was a lot younger. She has to live with the consequences of it. I don't think that, Annie's a bad person because of what she did, but it's something that she may have to reckon with for a lot of this season. And I'm all for giving Annie depth as a character. I think she is mostly lawfully good. And I like to live in the lawfully
I
good
know you
realm
do.
with a lot of my characters, with a lot of the video games I play, a lot of things I do. So I really like Starlight, but I'm fine with Starlight having some flaws here and there because what she's going through the rest of the season is pretty substantial that she may not even have a lot of time to deal with Firecracker or trying to make amends because she's trying to be with the boys now, which is great. They can always use someone on their side. I think she was pretty useful and sort of the cold open for this season, being a literal light in the darkness for Huey here and there. But this is a group where Butcher doesn't obviously want her there. They've got their own fair share of issues. She's still got her relationship with Huey. It's a lot to balance, and she's trying to also figure out, do I want to just be Annie or do I want to be Starlight? Because this is something that is now deeply associated with Vought. And I think psychologically and, understandably, when you go through something deeply traumatic, and I think being with Vought is deeply traumatic,
Yes.
you want to dissociate from that to the best of your ability. And I think that's what's going on at times to the detriment of, her own community of people she could be supporting.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the big theme for Starlight this season. As I said, everybody's looking into their past and trying to make a better future for themselves. We also have Kimiko is also diving into her past with everything that happened with, Shining Light and trying to, get them to fall. They just happen to be in New York City, so she's able to deal with her past. Huey's mom has come back, which is another storyline that I'm kind of like, did I need to see Huey's mom? I really didn't, actually. I mean, it's fine for what it is. It almost kind of felt like they didn't really know what to do with him, but there was a part of me like that really liked seeing that there was, the mom left when he was really young, and then he has this very close relationship with his dad. And you don't really see a lot of stories where it's like a young man being raised by just his dad, a sensitive, kind man, and has turned, Huey into a sensitive, kind man as well. And yes, of course, he's done bad things. He's with the boys, and everybody does that and tests their boundaries and stuff like that. But for me, it was more interesting to have that dynamic. And like, I just never really cared why the mom left or what was going on with the mom, because this is who Huey is now. And her coming back, I was just like, I don't really care.
Okay, so there are a couple of different storylines that I like to think of when I'm pondering over, is this working? There's a storyline where I sit back and I think, okay, I'm willing to try to give this the benefit of the doubt for now because I'll see where it's going. Maybe I'll develop an opinion that's positive of it. That's where I am with Huey's mom right now. 2 episodes from now, I may hate it. But there's the other storyline, which is the I don't like this now, and I'm not going to like it in a couple of episodes, and there's nothing you can do that's going to make me change my mind.
Okay, are we talking about Frenchie?
I hate this storyline.
I hate it
It's
with
so
every every fiber of my being.
Yeah.
I hate this storyline. And I think the show knew that people were not going to like this storyline because a lot of people have been rooting for Frenchie and Kimiko to get together. The will they, won't they,
Yeah.
will they, won't they. That they have actually like pushed Kimiko to push it on the audience to be like, hey, I'm okay with it. So if I'm okay with it, you guys will be okay with it. No, Kimiko, nobody's okay with it. And I don't believe you're okay with it either.
There's just no point. I'm just sitting back and thinking, why are they doing this? There's no reason to do this at this point because you could continue along the will they or won't they road with Frenchie and Kimiko for a little bit longer, but it's clear that they love each other. They care about each other. They work together. They've gone through these shared experiences that nobody else can really understand. It just builds to this point where it never felt like Frenchie was just lonely and wanting for something that Kimiko wasn't giving him. So this storyline is out of nowhere. It doesn't feel like it's meaningful in any way. And I just sort of sit back and I'm thinking, if you guys just really wanted to give Frenchie a storyline, Why not wait
Yeah.
for some of the other stories to wrap up a little bit and then you give them one at this point? You don't need everybody to have a continuous storyline through the entire season. It's okay every now and then for somebody to sit back, be on the bench, and then just wait for the coach to put them in.
Yeah, I mean, Frenchie has a storyline. His storyline is, what was going on with Nina and then Butcher and everybody that was, pushing and pulling him to kill people, to do this, that he was, a lapdog to everybody, and him trying to figure out who he is. He didn't need a love interest, and for it to be very specifically one of the people whose family he killed, that it doesn't need to be this complicated, and it doesn't need to even be there for Frenchie to already be having all this self-reflection and trying to figure out, like, why was I like this with Nina? Why was I like this with Butcher? And how do I not be like this with Kimiko?
So before we get to Victoria here, because I know there's a couple of things we got to hit with her, now it is time to get into the things that I'm afraid I'm going to forget that I want to praise in this video. Number one, Butcher and I used the same hand mixer. I just felt like I would throw that out there. I looked at that, I was like, oh, I have that hand mixer. It's the only thing Billy Butcher and I have in common.
And cookies.
And cookies, yeah, there we go.
Except you don't spike yours.
I do not spike mine.
Just with chocolate and love.
Yes. Okay, speaking of love, I mentioned this earlier, the Bought on Ice stuff.
Oh my god, it was so good.
I knew that somebody was going to die in some really horrible way. I didn't even still when it happened and May basically gets this cut in half. It killed me. It reminded me a lot of like these SNL sketches that they do at the end of the season where something shocking like that happens and everything goes off the rails.
It was so good. I laughed so hard.
I also did enjoy the big mitzvah massacre that happened at the end of episode 2 that got really ridiculous. I don't know.
With the mimics? Oh my goodness, it was so good.
I don't know if I needed to see as much junk, if you know what I mean, as I got within. I think The Boys has already set the record on the amount of junk that I have to watch every single season. But it was a lot, but it's like, good job, guys. You found a way to push the envelope again in a way that I did not expect.
Yes.
All right. Victoria Newman, what is your end game? What are you actually trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, we see now that she is with Singer. She's going to be the VP. He's going to be the president, but he's working with the CIA to help take down his own VP. Like, he's bringing her in so that they can kind of get more of an inside track on Victoria, that they want to be able to deal with her. We know that she has, the virus that can kill supes. I mean, Butcher has said that this virus will not kill Homelander yet. So, I mean, are they still doing more on that to try to be able to, up it so that they can deal with Homelander? What is her end game besides I'm going to be president? We'll win this and then I'll just kill off Singer and then I'll be the president.
Yeah, I hope there's something more because that was an easy thing to predict going into this season, that's what Newman was ultimately going to want to do, because why wouldn't she want to do that? I was a little disappointed that they really did sort of just yada yada the soup virus thing, because that was such a big thing coming out of Gen V, and I know that they want to make the boys and Gen V their own things. They don't want to lean too much on each other.
Yeah, but it was in the trailer. I mean, they pushed it pretty hard in that trailer.
They did, and so I thought it was going to be a little bit more, and then they were just like, well, we've got it, but it's not good enough yet, so we're just not going to talk about it for the rest of these few episodes, and maybe it will come up down the road. Like, I still stand by what I've said at the end of season 3 too, that Newman just wants ultimately control. She wants to regulate Supes, but that's mostly just because she wants Supes to be, fully under her umbrella, and she wants to sort of know what's going on at all times. I think she does want to keep her daughter safe. I think that is a part of it. She's complicated because I think Homelander is pure chaotic evil. I think she sort of falls somewhere in a little bit more complicated a space where she does have empathy, she does care for people, but she also blows people up. And that really makes for a very delicate balance.
I think Homelander's going to have a really interesting story this season too, because like that sort of last scene with him in the broken mirror and all the different pieces of him, like he's mostly evil and chaotic, but at the same time there are other layers to him as well. He really wants to be loved, and he really wants to figure out how to love, and he just doesn't have any proper influences in his life that are able to do that. He's got a bunch of yes people around him. Now he has Sage, who's very obviously using him for something. You know,
Yeah.
we don't know what the end game is yet. He just doesn't have anybody around him.
I think episode 4 is going to be very, very fascinating. Like we're going to have a preview of discussing it, but it
Yeah.
feels like we are doing a lot of Coldplay's The Scientist with this episode where we're going back to the start and we're going to see exactly what Homelander has gone through.
Hmm.
Maybe I don't think it's going to make me empathize with them because I think
No.
that's impossible, but
Listen, nobody's going on a Homelander redemption story. This is not what's happening, but I think that it's been more interesting having Homelander seeing these little glimpses of the fact that he could have cared and he could have
yeah.
had empathy and he could have maybe gone down a different path if what happened to him didn't happen to him.
These 3 episodes were very, very fun. Certainly flawed. I would put them right around where I have The Boys season 3, which was my least favorite of the seasons. But that's just because we have great things, and then we have the Frenchie
Oh
storyline.
my
It's
God.
just it's just a mixture of stuff. It's basically, you're making a soup, and then at a certain point, you're like, I want to put some cayenne pepper in this soup, and then you taste it, and it's really spicy and not good anymore. It's like, why did I put this in here? You sometimes less is more. Hopefully, the boys remembers that as we go further and further into this season. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, smash that like button as well. That helps us a lot in the algorithm. Also, we have all sorts of the boys coverage
Mhm.
over on our Patreon. Be sure to join that. We have a link in the description below. Thank you so much to our patrons for
Thank
your
you.
support, and we'll see you here next time.